Hi, I'm Brad Sarin, Superintendent of the Prairie Area School District, and I am blessed to have members of the Strategic Framework Refresh Steering Committee with me today to do a screencast to the school board and the community regarding the new strategic framework that will help guide our district strategically for the next 5 years. First, we're going to introduce ourselves. I'm Brad Sarin, Superintendent. I've got 3 kids in the system and 1 graduate. And Steph, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Stephanie Yadis. I am a lifetime resident of Sun Prairie. I went to the Sun Prairie Area School District myself, and I have a 3rd grader at Westside School as well.
Sanket?
Hello, I'm Sanket Shah, and I am a Sun Prairie resident since 2014. I was in Madison area. My son is going to be a freshman at the new high school. We are excited about that. And I fortunately was able to participate in other committees for the Boundary Task Force and the Bell. It has a long acronym, but glad to be here.
And Greg, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Greg Carpenter. We've been residents of Sun Prairie for the past 10 years. I have 2 daughters, one entering kindergarten, so she's in Jumpstart for kindergarten at the moment, and I have a 13-year-old going into 8th grade.
Great, thanks everybody. I'm going to turn it over to Steph to do an introduction of the charge of the steering committee.
So the steering committee was established essentially to assist the board and the administrative team in refreshing the previous strategic plan that was done 7 years ago. So just basically interpreting the community input, recommending the key themes that were integrated into the board student result, and the operational expectation policies in the district-wide strategic plan.
All right, it was great to see the community and the school staff coming in together to cohesively work on a strategy which we would want to refresh from our existing strategic plan. So we had over 12 hours of meeting over 6 Wednesdays, long days after work from February until May. I would really like to call out the names here who specifically were participant in this whole effort. Dr. Brad Sarin, Mr. Steve Schroeder, who are the facilitators, Nada Abdullah, Greg Carpenter, Albert Chen, Heather Dubois, Brunain, Jennifer Gebert, Stephanie Jures, Delmar Minyard Jr., myself, Sanket Shah, Scott Schumel, Manuel Torobiartes, and Marcela Venegas. I'm sorry if I didn't speak the last names properly.
Okay, so we all know that organizations sometimes can get messy, especially when each entity in an organization is just really trying to solve problems that are in front of them and at their desk. And so sometimes alignment can become misaligned when everybody is just sort of moving in different directions. And one of the purposes of a strategic plan or a strategic framework like this, where we harness community input, is to go from a place where we might just be trying to solve the problems at our desk into a place where we are more aligned and trying to meet community input. And so the community input from the organization can be, like we see here in this sort of analogy, different colors and maybe different areas, but to have alignment behind a common shared purpose that is aligned to community expectations is extremely important to the Sun Prairie Area School District. Our last strategic plan really was based on community input, and now this strategic framework refresh is also based on community input. And I'm really just grateful for the steering committees to committee members to be with me today presenting. And so from here, I'm going to turn it over to Greg to go over our last strategic plan.
This is our existing strategic plan that was developed by the community back in 2013. It has successfully guided our district for the last 7 years. And given that it's served for 7 years, there's a lot more information that can be discovered. If you go by going to the district's website, and then there will be a section named 6 Years of Continuous Improvement. You can find a lot more information there.
All right, after 7 long years of working with our previous strategic plan, we think it's time to check back in with the community to better understand our community expectations through a process.
And so one of the things that we did as a district is we brought in 2 partners to help us design a process to check back in with the community. One of the partners we brought in was called Dialogue Partners. And the district worked with Dialogue Partners to try to create innovative ways to check in with the community and really harness community input. Dialogue Partners is really closely collaborating with the International Association of Public Participation, who have their engagement metrics where they help organizations really touch base with communities to better understand community input. And so what arose out of that was a 3-part strategy to try to check in with the community. The first strategy included 2 Question Tuesdays. We took a survey and we really took it apart into separate sections because we know that community members and parents have survey fatigue. And for so this deconstructed survey to be taken apart and disseminated in a very accessible way through 2 Question Tuesdays from the end of October through the middle of November really helped us get input from our community in a really sort of quick way that was not overwhelming. It didn't take a lot of time and it was wide open, so many people had access to the survey. The second one was called a relational interview. We interviewed many people in order to better understand community input. Relational interviews are grounded in community organizing, and it was a methodology that we felt really helped us get input from our communities of color in the Sun Prairie Area School District. The last strategy that we had was called an ideas fair, really open houses that were organized in a way that allowed people to come in and talk face to face and share ideas about their expectations for the school district and the future and how we serve students in the Sun Prairie Area School District. So one of the things that I'd like to talk about is how the Sun Prairie Area School District developed a strategic plan last time, like Greg was just saying, in the 13-14 school year, and how we developed it this time. And so in 2013, for the 13-14 school year, at the time, the superintendent and the board engaged in a SWOT analysis with over 60 community members. They held a 3-day event with 50 community members at the District Support Center, and they had a University of Wisconsin-Madison research student come in and thematically analyze the themes that arose out of that. At the time, there was not any focus on representation, meaning traditionally looking at the traditionally marginalized populations in the Sun Prairie Area School District. This time in the 2021-22 refresh of our strategic framework, we did it a little bit different. We did that deconstructed survey, and in that deconstructed survey, we had nearly 1,500 responses. We did 151 relational interviews with people across the Sun Prairie Area School District. We had 25 people attend 2 open houses. We did 183 student interviews. We had 12 people on a strategic framework steering committee engage over 5 nights. And we had a very proactive focus on representation of all of the segments of the Sun Prairie Area School District community throughout the entire process. And so the ways that we did that, we ensured representation to reflect the cultures of our diverse community, which is inside of our vision statement, is that we had front-end intentionality in terms of inclusionary practice. And so the student interviews were deliberately flipped in order to elevate traditionally marginalized student voice, meaning that we are about 40% students of color in the Sun Prairie Area School District and about 60% white students. And what we did is we interviewed about 60% students of color and 40% white students. The second thing that we did, like I said before, is we engaged in relational interviews, which were deliberately planned and arranged to represent the demographics of the Sun Prairie Area School District. In terms of our surveys, we removed all of the barriers. There were no codes that you had to go to or enter in. There was no special website that you had to do. We really opened it up and did not require passwords or exclusive invitations to certain people and not others. It was very accessible. And the last thing is the steering committee. We made sure that the committee was deliberately planned and arranged to ensure diverse perspectives and input throughout the entire process.
So from that, the Sun Prairie Area School District partnered with the Wisconsin Center for Education Research to analyze the feedback from the community and present the key themes to the steering community. Dr. Molly Carroll came on a Zoom meeting and was able to go through all the key themes and analysis from the project and kind of break it down for us and letting us know how to better understand the community expectations that came from the analysis that she was able to do from all of them and provide it to us to be able to go forward from there.
Now, it's important to know that the feedback that we expected from the community has context, meaning that there was going to be sort of signs of the times in the feedback that we were going to get from our community. Because we were at the tail end of a 6-year strategic plan, we decided, despite the fact that there was a lot of different things happening throughout the nation and throughout the state, that we wanted to get feedback. So we want to just uplift the fact that we asked the questions of a strategic plan refresh during a time where there was a good amount of mistrust in government because of COVID regulations, and people had COVID crankiness. We asked the questions at a time where there was a national issue of student dysregulation. And here you can see for the Wall Street Journal, talking about schools confronting a wave of students struggling to try to re-engage in a very structured atmosphere in schools. We chose to ask the questions during the Great Resignation, where we had teachers actively talking about being burned out and trying to meet the needs of students at the time where they needed teachers the most and where they were dysregulated and trying to re-engage in communities. We asked the questions where there was a lot of dialogue in society, in Wisconsin, in the nation, about race and reconciliation of how our marginalized populations are uplifted and able to access opportunity like anyone else in the nation. We asked these questions during that time. And so it's important to review some of the feedback that we got within the context of the time that we asked these questions. The other thing that's important to note is that we asked the questions right before our transition to a new secondary configuration. So everybody should know that, especially at our secondary schools, our schools are packed. That means hallways are crowded and frustrating. That means bathrooms are congested at our secondary schools. Classrooms are full, and storage for materials is always challenging for all of our amazing teachers across this district. Cafeterias are loud, it's hard to find a spot, and it's overflowing into hallways. And so at this point, it's important just to make sure that we remember that we asked these questions and got feedback from our community during a pretty complex time. And so some of the feedback that we got is feedback that is signs of the times that we have to incorporate into a new strategic framework in order to guide our work for the next 5 years. And from here, I'm going to turn it over to Senkit to talk about some of the key themes that arose out of our engagement from the Wisconsin Center for Educational Research.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brad. And we really appreciated Dr. Molly Carroll's effort on providing us these key themes, which really contributed towards us collectively working on our strategic plan. And the key themes which were in focus were the open response themes included safety behavior, especially at middle schools and the high school level, student learning and the programming, educator support for frequently connected to safety, diversity, equity, and inclusion, both on the positive side and on the negative side, communications. The close response themes which were predominantly existing were socioeconomic learning and student well-being, which included the inter and the intrapersonal relationship, and most important, the mental health part of it. The academic growth and the achievement, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which if you see it's the common theme across both open response and the closed response themes. The student engagement, digital citizenship, which includes online safety, appropriate use of social media, and credibility of the information. So the steering committee's task was to take all of these thematically analyzed key themes provided by the Wisconsin Center for Educational Research and the results of our existing instructional framework, which would feed into our existing strategic plan for us to work on a refresh.
Thank you, Sankat. So many of these items here were huge points of emphasis in the 2013 strategic plan, which went into how they developed their framework for that section of time. Things like public engagement, facilities, diversity of staff, and so forth. Today, we didn't hear these themes of concerns from the community feedback, which is a good thing. But while there are additional concerns, it plays a large role in how we formulated the new strategic framework for these next 5 years.
Overall, the vision and mission of the school district didn't change, hence this being a refresh of the strategic plan. However, we are recommending some changes that include moving the foundational thread of continuous improvement to the top and changing it to a commitment that has more significant emphasis on equity and excellence. We also collapsed the 4-pillar strategic plan into a 3-pillar strategic plan that emphasizes more on culture across the pillars. There's a more significant emphasis on the learning environment, exceptional and diverse educators and staff, as well as a focus on operational excellence.
So this is our continued commitment to this community, the core values. We took the 12 core value statements created in the previous strategic plan that were quite long, a little wordy, maybe hard to read. We reworked them a little bit. We felt was the strongest key components to the value system that would stand out. So that is where we came up with these. We're making it look a little bit more clean and concise to the reader and understanding where we lie and how to read them cleanly.
Okay. We are at the end of this presentation, and I just want to express just my huge gratitude to the strategic framework refresh steering committee. You can tell just by the people that presented on this screencast, they were amazing partners and very vested in order to make this school district the very best that it can be, and to make sure that strategically we were getting input and we were authentically incorporating that input into a new strategic plan. And so I want you to know, anytime you have questions, and that means if you have questions, if maybe a neighbor or a spouse or a friend has questions about the strategic plan or any other topic in the Sun Prairie Area School District, they can always reach out to me. And if I can't answer that question, I'll always get them to someone that can answer that question. And so from here, again, thank you to the Strategic Framework Refresh Steering Committee, and I wish all you well. Thank you.